Hi, my name's Ella. I'm a fourth year vet at Cambridge. I started there in 2020, so I applied from 2019 to 2020. That's when I wrote my personal statement. So today I'm going to be talking through my personal statement and about what I would do differently if I wrote it now. So we are going to start with the introduction. The introduction is a very important part of your personal statement. It needs to be attention grabbing, something that's different and memorable that makes the admissions people remember you, but you should also be able to link it back to vet. So for mine, what I did, I was lucky enough in sixth form to be able to give a speech at the UN, which I thought was something that probably not many other people had done. So I thought it was something unique about me. And then I linked that back to vet using keywords like determination, drive, and communication skills. Looking back, I think whilst it is unique and hopefully was attention grabbing, it's perhaps not the most relevant example, and there were probably examples that I could have used that maybe would have linked back to vet better than this one did. One main thing I would say about your introduction is whatever you do, do not start it with, I've wanted to be a vet since I was 6 years old. I want to be a vet because I love animals. This is something that a lot of people do, it's something I've seen a lot, and it's something admissions people have seen even more. We know you want to be a vet, we know you've wanted to be a vet for years, but what's different about you? What's special about you? The main thing is what makes you unique. So for the next bit, I talked about my work experience. I think this is a major part of your personal statement, especially for vet students. As I'm sure you know, as a vet applicant, most vet schools really emphasise the importance of work experience when applying to vet school. Cambridge is perhaps a vet school that doesn't mind it as much. I think they ask for roughly 2 weeks, but they're not super strict on it compared to a lot of other vet schools, which is actually one of the reasons I applied. But regardless of that, I think even if Cambridge is your main goal, work experience is still very important as long as you can get it. I know for some people, circumstances make that hard, but even if you can just get a few days, I would say it's very important. So, when talking about your work experience, it's really important to emphasise exactly what you've learnt from it and don't just list all of the things you've seen. Looking at this paragraph I wrote on work experience, at the beginning I have slightly listed what I saw. So I've said spays, castrations, amputation, flushing a rabbit's eye, and a rectum blockage in a dog. Whilst I did expand on this slightly, I would say I should have expanded much more. I think it's a very important paragraph. I should have gone more in detail about what I learned from the specific surgeries I saw and how that directly links to being a vet and how it can show your potential to the admissions people and why they want you. So this next one, also more on work experience, but from a slightly different perspective. This is the work experience I did outside of vet clinics. So this is from a livery yard and from farms. This is a more animal husbandry approach. So it looks more about the animal care, the clients, rather than just the vets and the surgeries and the things that you typically think of when you're a vet. So this shows that you're more interested in animals a bit more generally, not so specifically, and you've given a bit more thought into what a vet is, rather than just, oh, a vet's just does surgery on the animals. But no, it gives you a bit more of a chance to talk about clients and client interaction and people skills, all of which are really important characteristics of a vet. Again, really important to talk about what you've learned and the skills you've developed that could be useful rather than just listing stuff you've done. If I did this again, there's a section I've written about the different attitudes between owners. I think this was something really good that I mentioned, but I think I probably should have gone into a bit more detail about it, perhaps from an ethical point of view and from the point of view of the struggles that vets face and why it can be such a tough profession. And it was something that I could have really used to show that I understand the struggles of being a vet and how it's not all just, oh, yay, I'm a vet now. I've gone through uni, I've gone through the really hard application process, I'm a vet now. But no, it shows that you understand what exactly is about being a vet and how it's not just all about the fact, oh, you're a vet, there you go, you've done the hard bit. There are a lot of struggles being a vet, but it shows that it's something you understand and you're willing to do regardless. Okay, so moving on from work experience, the next section of my personal statement was about the academic work I did outside of school, so beyond GCSEs and A levels, beyond your work experience, what have you done that shows you really do have an interest in veterinary? This is very important for vets because as a vet, you have to do CPD, continuing professional development, all through your life to keep up to date on, for example, new treatments, new techniques, new technology, things like that. So this is a very important thing to demonstrate to the applications team and interviewers and stuff that it's something that you can do. A good example of how to talk about this is to pick something you've seen on your work experience and read a few papers on it and see what you learn from it. Make some notes on it, learn in detail about it, and then you can write about that. So for me, when I was in a vet clinic, I saw some laser therapy treatment, and so I read up on this and I've written about that in here. If I did this bit again, I would definitely go further into this laser therapy treatment. I think I've slightly glanced over it. I've basically put a sentence on it, and then I've gone on to talk about all these other things I did. And whilst I think the other things I did were important and did show that I was willing to do work outside of just my A levels, I think reading specifically into a vet treatment, or maybe even two vet treatments, could have showed my commitment to looking into these things outside of school a lot more perhaps than say my chemistry challenge and my Silver Crest Award and things like that. So the final main section of my personal statement was on extracurriculars. I know it can be tempting to maybe not mention these in a personal statement because you're restricted to your 4,000 characters, which really isn't a lot, but I think they are very important to put in, especially as a vet student. Generally, among vet schools and among the vet profession, there is a growing importance in the work-life balance and improving mental health. And showing that you participated in extracurriculars all through school shows that you're more likely to be able to carry on with this through uni, through your profession. It shows that you will have a better work-life balance, you'll have better mental health, you'll be less likely to burn out, you will cope better with the struggles and the demands that do come with being a vet. So I was actually, looking back on this, quite pleased with this paragraph I wrote. I think I kept it fairly brief, so I didn't waste too many of my 4,000 characters, but I also showed the wide variety of things that I did, and I showed that I was able to maintain a work-life balance. For those of you maybe thinking, I don't do any extracurriculars, I don't play 5 different musical instruments, I don't do sport. I'm sure you do something, whether that's just painting, drawing, even just hanging out with your friends, you go on walks with your friends, things like that, just things that you do outside of school, interests that you have. If you're really interested in, I don't know, a specific sport, even if you don't play it, that's something that you do outside of school and something that interests you outside of academic work. And that can definitely be talked about. Once again, though, I want to emphasise the importance of linking it all back to being a vet. So for me, I linked it back through manual dexterity. So you can use that for anything. It's kind of like playing an instrument, painting, drawing, things like that. You can link to manual dexterity, which is a good thing to talk about. You can also use it to talk about teamwork, motivation, resilience. Any of those keywords are great to mention, and most extracurricular activities can link to it some way or another. Okay, so finally, it's important to have a good closing paragraph. It doesn't need to be long, it can be very brief. By this point, I'm sure you're running out of characters. But like the opening, it needs to be attention grabbing. It needs to make the application committee remember you. What is important about you? Also, you should have a closing sentence that wraps the whole thing together and is also relevant to the earlier statements you've made. Looking back at mine, I think it quite nicely wraps together my personal statement and also links to being a vet, but I would say it's not very unique to me and maybe doesn't stand out that well. So if I was doing it again, I'd perhaps find a specific thing about me that I could put in rather than this quite generic statement that I've used. Okay, so finally, a little overview. This is the structure that I used for my personal statement. You definitely don't have to use it. This is just what I did. So I started with that attention-grabbing introduction, talked about my work experience, remembering the important things of what did I learn from it, and not just listing what I've seen. I then talked about studying outside of the school curriculum, going above and beyond, and showing interest in things relating to vet, but beyond what you learn about in school. Then I talked about my extracurriculars, demonstrating my work life balance, and finally, my closing paragraph, something that's memorable and draws everything together. Personal statements are really hard to write. I wrote a lot of drafts for mine. I think I started about 1,500 characters over the limit. But my main advice would be put in absolutely anything and everything you can think of. And you can cut it down from there. That way you won't miss out anything important. I also emphasise the importance of getting different opinions if you can. So for me, I was lucky enough that two of my school teachers, my biology and my chemistry teacher, read it. My parents read it, and I also got a Cambridge student I knew to read it. So I was very lucky from that perspective. But I would say be careful with getting too many people to read it. Everyone has different opinions when it comes to personal statements. And it can be very hard when you're getting told 5 different ways you should open your personal statement to know what to do. So at the end of the day, your personal statement is about you and you want to get across the real you and you want to be picked because you are suited to the course. So yeah, the final takeaway would be make sure you're true to yourself. Don't write anything you haven't done. Be prepared to talk about anything you write about in your interview. And yeah, just stick to yourself and what you know and what you're proud of about yourself. You've worked really hard to just get to this point. So just you're at the final bit, putting it all into words, which can be hard, but it is doable. So I hope this has been useful and good luck with everything.